zero carbon target. A bill will be introduced to Parliament next year, but it's already under fire from Greenpeace for failing to rule out new permits being issued for coal mines and for oil drilling. Let's talk now to the Climate Change Minister, James Shaw. Good morning to you, Minister.
Yeah, good morning, Guyon.
What do you say to Greenpeace, who are saying that you should, as a government, ban new permits for coal mines and for oil drilling?
Well, as the Prime Minister said yesterday, fossil fuels are not our future. And in fact, the whole point of the Zero Carbon Act and the Independent Climate Commission is that it should be guiding us towards that down that path, setting carbon budgets and then holding the accountable for making the policy decisions that are required in order to meet that target. So there will be a point, I think, when you won't see any new fossil fuels in New Zealand.
Yes, but she is saying it will be a case-by-case basis. She is refusing to rule out new permits for coal and for oil drilling. So why are you taking that approach that you are allowing new permits to go ahead?
Well, I am not. The point of the commission...
Well, hang on, let's just stop there.
Yeah.
You are not. What do you mean by that?
So, as Green Party leader, I have always said, that we shouldn't be opening up any new fossil fuels. As Minister for Climate Change, I have to say that in the future, if you're going to get to a zero carbon economy, there will be a point at which it's simply incongruous to be issuing those. But the point
but this is important,
Yeah.
because they are different roles, and you're trying to straddle them, and I appreciate that. But it's important. So, as Climate Change Minister, are you open to new permits being issued for coal mines and for oil drilling?
Well, as Climate Change Minister, my responsibility is to pass the Zero Carbon Act and to ensure that there is an independent commission. That is actually the point of it. So,
can you answer that question? As Climate Change Minister, are you open to new permits being issued for coal mines and for oil drilling?
I would advise against it as Climate Change Minister.
And you speak for the government on climate change, don't you? Not for the Green Party, but for the government. That's what it says in the Cabinet Manual. As per your portfolio, you speak for the government. So what is the government's position? Is it no to new permits for coal mines?
It's on a case-by-case basis. That is the government's position as outlined by the Prime Minister.
So how is the consistency there? You've just told us this morning, you would advise against it.
Well, like I said, if we have an independent climate commission and a budget in 5-yearly increments where we're supposed to reduce our emissions to net zero by the year 2050, and there is some accountability from government for living within those emissions budgets, then there will be a point at which we will not be issuing any more permits for exploration of new fossil fuels. You simply cannot get to net zero and do that. And the Prime Minister herself said repeatedly yesterday, a number of times, that fossil fuels are not our future, and at the same time that we have to transition those industries and those communities where there is currently an investment in fossil fuels. And I completely agree with her. I mean, we cannot abandon communities kind of just falling off a cliff. We've got to have what we call a just transition to get them into that future.
So let's go right to the present then. Te Kuha. This is a coal mine behind Westport. You'll be familiar with it? You familiar with it? An open cast coal mine, right?
Yeah.
Now that decision comes before the Conservation Minister very shortly, doesn't it?
It does.
And what is the government going to do? Are you going to allow a new coal mine to be opened on Westport?
Well, there are a number of things, Guyon, which we've inherited from the previous government, which were so far advanced that actually our options for doing much about them at this point in the process are very limited. Ministers do not have unbridled power, and I mean, in general, that is a good thing. So Te Kuha Mine is one of those things that was heavily advanced. That was
so
in
that
its,
will
it's
go
in
ahead?
Its final step. Well, I can't tell you what the decision of the Conservation Minister will be.
But you're saying you're pretty constrained to do anything about it. So are we going to see a new open cast coal mine being opened?
Well, I can't comment on Te Kuha specifically because it is in the middle of the final stages of its process.
But surely, if a government can change the law and find innovative ways round to stop foreigners, say, from buying foreign houses, you can find a way to stop an open cast coal mine, having said that this was the nuclear moment for our generation.
Well, like I said, there are constraints on ministerial power, and that is a good thing. So that tukuha mine is one of the things that's very far down the process. There was also, you'll remember also that the Amazon Warrior ship showed up very shortly after we got into government to start doing soundings off the Taranaki coastline as well, with a view to possible oil and gas exploration out there. Now, that, again, is a decision that was so far advanced under the previous government that we actually weren't able to do anything about it.
Right.
But if you talk to the Minister of Energy and Resources, Megan Woods, one of the things that she has said is that we probably have to change the law so that we are able to take environmental decisions, environmental considerations into account.
So two things on that. Firstly, you're saying you may well be powerless to stop the Kuha mine, open cast coal mine opening.
Look, I can't comment on the nature of that decision simply because of where it is in the process. But it was one of those things that was very far advanced when we came into government.
And you are looking to change the law to give you more power in that regard? Is that what you're saying?
Well, to take into account environmental considerations in ways that you currently can't under the existing Act.
Okay. The other last point I want to get from you is just a reiteration. I think you said you would recommend to the government as a minister not to issue new permits for coal and oil.
Yeah, that is my recommendation. I mean, my job as climate change minister is to advise the government on the best course of action to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, to limit the risk of the effects of climate change in New Zealand, so the damage to our agricultural sector, to our towns and to our water systems as the effects of climate change start to bite, and to develop systems for guiding us into a low-carbon economy in the future. And that is my job as Minister of Climate Change.
Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Let's have a quick look at the papers. The Herald this morning is carrying a story about that man struck by a stingray on the weekend near Masterton. The Waikato Times has a report on DH.